Hello there, and welcome. In a galaxy swirling with stories, mysteries drift gently like stardust. Tonight, we'll explore some of the most wondrous Star Wars fan theories in a calm and immersive journey. Perfect for listening, imagining, and perhaps drifting off to dreams in a galaxy far, far away, blending official canon with legendary lore. The Immortal Sith Lord. Darth Plagueis' secret. In the dim glow of Coruscant's city lights, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine once spun a haunting tale to young Anakin Skywalker, the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Plagueis was said to be a Dark Lord so powerful he could influence the Force to create life and even stave off death itself. Officially, the Sith Master was betrayed and killed by his apprentice, implied to be Palpatine. Yet fan whispers wonder if Darth Plagueis truly died at all. According to one popular theory, Plagueis' mastery over midi-chlorians allowed him to survive beyond his apparent death. Perhaps he foresaw Palpatine's treachery and secretly lived on, shedding his identity while his pupil rose to power. Some even speculated that Snoke, the shadowy supreme leader in the sequel trilogy, was in fact Plagueis reborn, his disfigured features and ancient eyes concealing the wise Sith Lord at last returned. After all, Snoke's theme music in The Force Awakens carried an eerie similarity to the melody underscoring Palpatine's Plagueis legend. Could that have been a clue? Fans noted his tall, gaunt form was not unlike the moon species described for Plagueis in old legends, and if anyone could cheat death, surely it was the Sith who researched immortality. In this gentle theory, Darth Plagueis lurks in the shadows of the saga, unseen but ever present. Imagine him drifting as a specter through the Force, watching his former apprentice, Darth Sidious, rise and fall and perhaps quietly nudging events from afar. Perhaps every disturbance in the Force was Plagueis' doing, an immortal puppeteer ensuring the Sith's designs endured. The thought is chilling yet strangely comforting, that even in Star Wars, death may not be the end for those with enough will. In truth, current canon holds that Plagueis was truly slain by Palpatine, and Snoke turned out to have a different origin. But as you listen in the dark, it's easy to imagine the soft, raspy laughter of Darth Plagueis still echoing in some forgotten corner of the cosmos. Was he really the unseen architect of so much tragedy? The idea drifts like a phantom. If it were true, the entire saga would reframe into Plagueis' long game for ultimate power and life unending. As we ponder this ancient Sith's possible survival, we feel the Force swirl with unanswered questions. Darth Plagueis' legacy remains an alluring enigma, a quiet reminder that in this universe, even death may be negotiated with. And as that thought settles, we turn our eyes to an intertwined mystery, one that begins with the birth of a boy who had no father. A birth by the Force, the mystery of Anakin's creation. It is said that Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, had no human father. In The Phantom Menace, Shmi Skywalker's gentle voice confesses, "There was no father. I carried him, I gave birth, I raised him. I can't explain what happened." In that humble scene, the saga introduced one of its deepest mysteries. Was Anakin conceived by the Force itself? Or by something darker? Over the years, fans have quietly expanded Shmi's words into a theory of cosmic intrigue. One leading idea is that Anakin's birth was not an accident of the Force, but an act of Sith manipulation. They propose that Darth Plagueis, or perhaps Palpatine, his apprentice, willed the midi-chlorians to spark life in Shmi. Indeed, in George Lucas's early notes, he toyed with making this explicit. One archival book revealed Lucas's original plan. Palpatine would reveal to Anakin that he had used the Force to will the midi-chlorians to start the cell division that created him. Imagine Anakin's shock, learning the man he served as a mentor might literally be his father through the Force. Lucas ultimately kept this revelation out of the films, leaving it tantalizingly ambiguous. But the hint is there in Revenge of the Sith when Palpatine speaks of Plagueis' ability to create life. Legendary lore, the old Star Wars novels now labeled Legends, went even further. In the Darth Plagueis novel, Plagueis and Sidious perform a dark ritual, disturbing the Force so profoundly that the Force rebounds, conceiving Anakin as a counterweight. In that interpretation, Anakin is literally the child of the Force, created to restore balance after the Sith meddled with life and death. What a beautifully poetic notion that the Force itself could impregnate Shmi, almost like a divine birth, to answer the evil rising in the galaxy. Yet the darker version that Sidious or Plagueis consciously fathered Anakin through Sith sorcery holds a mythic allure. Picture Darth Sidious before he was Emperor, sensing the imminent birth of this chosen one and smiling to himself knowing he planted that seed. In one comic vision, Darth Vader, the fallen Anakin, experiences a nightmare where he sees Palpatine's dark specter looming behind his mother Shmi at the moment of conception. It's an unsettling image. The black-robed Sith pouring life into Shmi through the Force, forging his own ultimate apprentice. Lucasfilm storykeepers have since clarified that this comic scene was symbolic, not a literal confirmation. But the fact that it was depicted at all shows how persistent this theory has been. It sends a shiver through the Force. Did Anakin unwittingly fulfill a destiny the Sith set in motion? On the other hand, many take comfort in the simpler idea Qui-Gon Jinn believed, that the Force itself conceived Anakin as a miracle, no strings attached. In this gentler theory, Anakin is less a product of Sith schemes and more a virgin birth by the will of the cosmic force. The Chosen One prophecy said one would be born to bring balance. What if the Force, feeling the growing imbalance of the dark side, birthed Anakin as its champion? In that case, his only father is the Force that flows through all living things. Anakin's story then becomes almost biblical, a messianic child born to restore harmony. Sitting by our imaginary campfire, it's soothing to reflect on Anakin's origin with this open mind. Was he a Sith experiment gone right, or a divine gift to the galaxy? Perhaps a bit of both. The beauty of the mystery is that it was never definitively answered on screen. Anakin Skywalker remains a figure of prophecy and debate, his birth a paradox that can be seen as sinister or sacred. In the end, even Anakin himself might not know the truth. And maybe that's for the best. It preserves the myth. We're left with a soft, lingering thought. If the Force did create Anakin knowingly, it truly does work in mysterious ways. And if the Sith created him, then the Chosen One's destiny was entwined with darkness from the start. Either way, the tale of Anakin's creation adds a quiet wonder to his journey. A tale for sleepy imaginations to mull over as the stars twinkle above. Now, from the lofty and cosmic, let's turn to a lighter or darker corner of the saga, one that hides behind a clumsy grin and bulbous eyes. Darth Jar Jar? The dark secret of the Gungan clown Mesa have a bombad theory for you. Darth Jar Jar Binks. Yes, you heard that right. In hushed and humorous tones, some fans speculate that Jar Jar Binks, the goofy Gungan known for pratfalls and silly exclamations, was secretly a Sith Lord all along. It sounds absurd at first, and maybe it is, but let's indulge this remarkably popular fan theory, gently and seriously, as if it were a bedtime fable with a sly smile. According to this theory, Jar Jar's clumsiness is just a facade. In reality, he's a highly skilled Force user who intentionally bumbles his way through events to manipulate everyone around him. Think back to the Phantom Menace. Jar Jar seemingly accidentally falls into success time after time. He somersaults into the water to escape droids with an almost acrobatic grace. In the Battle of Naboo, his flailing ends up defeating battle droids by the dozens. Could these lucky moves actually be carefully guided by the Force? Perhaps Jar Jar is performing drunken fist-style combat, fooling onlookers while he deftly takes out enemies. The theory grew from keen-eyed fans noticing Jar Jar mouths words along during crucial scenes, like he's subtly influencing minds. He also leaps incredibly high, higher than seemingly possible, when he dives into a lake reminiscent of Force-aided jumps. Such observations led to the tongue-in-cheek, but detailed hypothesis that Jar Jar was a secret Sith collaborator, maybe even Palpatine's true master in the prequels. It recontextualizes moments like Jar Jar granting emergency powers to Palpatine in Attack of the Clones. Perhaps not out of naivety, but as part of a grand evil scheme. In other words, Jar Jar could have been the Phantom Menace himself, hiding beneath a fool's mask. This wild theory was first laid out by a Reddit user in 2015 and caught fire across the internet. Even Ahmed Best, the actor behind Jar Jar, gave it a playful nod, suggesting that such a twist might not be entirely implausible. Best hinted that originally there was a bigger plan for Jar Jar left unrealized, sending fans' imaginations racing. Could George Lucas truly have intended Jar Jar to be a villain mastermind, only to backtrack after Jar Jar's negative reception? It's an amusing thought. The most ridiculed character in Star Wars turning out to be the ultimate villain, laughing at us all. Picture it in a dreamy way. Jar Jar Binks, after years in exile, slinks into the shadows when no one's looking. His floppy ears straighten, his voice drops an octave, and a cunning, red-eyed glare pierces the night. All along, the Gungan fool was a mask, and Darth Jar Jar reveals himself with a menacing, "Mesa have you now?" Perhaps he even trained under Darth Plagueis or Sidious, a hidden apprentice who used Naboo's conflict to propel Palpatine to power while never revealing his own true strength. Of course, in reality, Jar Jar remains, as far as canon shows, just a well-meaning, hapless Gungan who helped bring the Republic down through innocence, not malice. But isn't it fun to imagine a scenario where the saga's greatest puppet master was hiding in plain sight as comic relief? It adds a mischievous layer to rewatching the prequels. Suddenly, every clumsy move and oopsie by Jar Jar could be him winking at the camera, the dark genius playing the fool. As we let this theory settle, it leaves us with a cozy appreciation for how creative and whimsical Star Wars lore can be. Even the silliest character might hide a dark side in the collective imagination. In the quiet of our thoughts, we chuckle softly. Whether Sith Lord or not, Jar Jar taught us that anyone, no matter how unlikely, can change the fate of the galaxy. And with that gentle lesson, we drift from the Gungan swamps of Naboo to a far more ethereal realm beyond real space, where the Force itself took form. The Mortis gods and the balance of the Force. Our journey now takes a mystical turn, to a place outside normal reality, a sepulchral realm known as Mortis. In the Clone Wars series, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka Tano find themselves drawn to a strange monolith and transported to Mortis, a world where the Force is powerfully concentrated. There they meet three beings of near mythic stature: the Father, the Daughter, and the Son. The Father maintains balance, the Daughter embodies the light side, the Son, the dark. This surreal trilogy of episodes plays like a dream or vision, but it introduced profound lore that fans have pondered ever since. The theory of Mortis is less a single theory than a tapestry of interpretations. Some see Mortis as the key to understanding the very nature of the Force. One intriguing notion is that Mortis was testing Anakin, offering him a chance to fulfill the Chosen One prophecy then and there. The Father plainly says Anakin is the Chosen One who must take his place to keep Daughter, light, and Son, dark, in balance. Indeed, Anakin briefly demonstrates godlike ability, subduing the warring Son and Daughter simultaneously. Fans theorize, had Anakin stayed on Mortis to replace the Father, perhaps the cosmic force would have remained in balance. But Anakin refuses the duty, and ultimately, through tragedy, both Daughter and Son die in that realm. The Father himself dies too. Some interpret this as a dire omen, that Anakin's choice not to remain as balanced led to imbalance in the galaxy, the rise of Sidious and the fall of the Jedi. In other words, Mortis presented a microcosm of the prophecy. Anakin could have balanced the Force by accepting the Father's mantle and containing both light and dark. Instead, he left, and balance had to be achieved later through more painful ways. A fan theory suggests that because Anakin failed the test on Mortis, the task of balance had to be completed in the normal world, which he eventually did, as Vader, by destroying the Sith. This helps reconcile why the Force went out of balance again after his initial victory, because Mortis's balance mechanism was broken. It's a complex idea, but one that links Mortis to the larger saga tightly. Mortis is also deeply symbolic. Many fans theorize that the Mortis gods are representations of the Force's fundamental aspects, perhaps even that they were once real people or celestial beings that became one with the Force eons ago. The Daughter's death and transferal of life to Ahsoka, more on that in a later segment, hint that these beings can pass their essence on. Some even speculate the spirits of Son or Daughter could resurface in other forms. One fringe theory posited Snoke was a vessel of the Son's dark essence, though that's quite a stretch. What Mortis does confirm in lore is that too much light or too much dark can both be dangerous. The Father says balance is needed or else destruction follows. Fans have run with this, developing the idea of gray Jedi, which we'll discuss soon, and a more nuanced view of balance than the Jedi Council had. Mortis practically illustrated that balance is an active, ongoing process, the Father constantly intervening between his quarreling children. Another ethereal theory about Mortis is that perhaps it wasn't a physical place at all, but a shared Force vision. Some viewers think Anakin and the others might have never left normal space, that the diamond monolith simply put them into a dreamlike state to teach them. Evidence? When they awaken back in their ship, no time has passed outside. If Mortis was a vision, then the theory goes that the Force itself was showing Anakin his destiny symbolically, giving him a chance to confront and accept his role. If so, the Force, through the Mortis apparitions, warned Anakin of what could come. In that light, the Mortis arc becomes a prophetic dream that Anakin tragically does not fully heed. Regardless of interpretation, the Mortis saga casts a long, gentle shadow over Star Wars lore. It elevates the Force from an abstract energy to something almost personified and willful. Fans often get a bit reverent when discussing Mortis, speaking of it in mythological terms. The father, son, and daughter feel like figures out of a bedtime myth, the kind you'd hear from a Jedi storyteller in antiquity. In fact, one might imagine that around a Jedi temple campfire, younglings were once told of an ancient family that is the Force, to impart lessons of balance. In our sleepy journey tonight, let's take Mortis as exactly that, a soft lesson. The daughter reminds us of selflessness and sacrifice. She gives her life to save Ahsoka. The son warns of unchecked passion and hate. The father teaches that only by understanding and tempering both sides can peace be kept. It's a fairy tale of balance that echoes through the saga from the Clone Wars to Luke's trials and beyond. As the Mortis chapter closes, we reflect quietly. Perhaps the Force itself tries to guide its children through stories and visions. Mortis may be one such story, a myth within a myth, teaching us and Anakin that balance demands constant care. Let's leave that mysterious realm now, its spires fading into stardust, and travel back in time to the days of the Old Republic, where a legendary figure straddled the line between darkness and light in a way few others have. Revan, the Jedi who became a Sith, and back again. Our next tale is whispered like an ancient legend, carried on the Force's breath through generations. It is the story of Darth Revan, a figure from the Old Republic era, thousands of years before the Skywalker saga, who embodies both darkness and light. If you find your mind drifting as we recount Revan's tale, that's okay. His story has the rhythm of a myth, perfect for lulling the soul. Revan's life, according to Legends lore, and beloved video games like Knights of the Old Republic, is a cycle of fall and redemption. He began as a charismatic Jedi Knight and general who believed passionately in protecting the Republic. When a great threat, the Mandalorian warrior clans, arose, Revan led the Jedi and Republic forces to victory in the Mandalorian Wars. But victory came at a cost. In pursuing the enemy into unknown regions, Revan and his close friend Malak encountered the influence of a hidden Sith Emperor. They succumbed to the dark side, claiming the titles of Dark Lords themselves. Thus, the valiant knight Revan became Darth Revan, leading a new Sith armada against the Republic he once swore to defend. Imagine the pathos of that turn. A hero burdened by war and willing to do anything for peace, gradually letting darkness taint his methods until he is the very evil he once fought. Fans have long theorized about Revan's inner conflict. Was he truly corrupted? Or did he intentionally embrace darkness as a means to an end? Some like to think Revan fell on purpose to understand the Sith, and eventually defeat the hidden Emperor. Others feel he simply lost his way, like Anakin would later. Here's where the story becomes gently uplifting. Revan did not remain a Sith forever. He was ultimately captured by the Jedi, who wiped his memory and retrained him as a Jedi once more. This was done initially so he could help stop Malak, his rampaging Sith apprentice. In the end, Revan reclaimed the light and defeated the Sith threat, redeeming himself. He lived on to straddle both worlds, possessing the wisdom of one who has seen both sides of the Force. In Legends, Revan was so powerful in the Force that even death wasn't the end of his fight. It's said he endured beyond the grave, part of him clinging on as a spirit to continue battling the ancient Sith Emperor in the spiritual realm. Few characters in Star Wars have had such a journey. Jedi, Sith, then Jedi again, with a legacy revered by both. Revan's existence suggests that the boundary between light and dark is permeable. One can cross it, perhaps even more than once. Fans love to theorize about Revan's lingering influence. While Disney's current canon has only lightly referenced him, a Sith Legion named Revan Legion in The Rise of Skywalker, a mask in a cartoon, many believe it's only a matter of time before Revan's legend is reintroduced more fully. Some of us like to imagine that Luke Skywalker, while rebuilding the Jedi after Episode 6, might have stumbled upon records of Revan. What would Luke learn from a soul who walked in both light and dark and came out whole? It could have guided him on how to handle Ben Solo's fall or the seduction of the dark side. In our dreamy campfire scenario, think of Revan as a gray-robed wanderer, whose story is told by Jedi Masters to illustrate that redemption is always possible. One can fall to darkness and yet find their way home to the light. Revan also embodies the idea that balance can exist within one person. He used both halves of the Force in his lifetime. Indeed, he was renowned for mastering both light and dark sides of the Force, and was respected by Jedi and Sith alike in different eras. If Mortis gave us cosmic representations of balance, Revan gives us a walking human representation of it. Fans sometimes frame Revan as a precursor to Anakin or Kylo Ren, a template for a redemptive arc or the complexities of a Force user who doesn't neatly fit one category. When the nights are long and imaginations fertile, one theory even suggests that Revan's spirit whispers through the Force, nudging individuals like Luke or Rey in their darkest moments, encouraging them to reject the dark as he eventually did. This isn't canonical by any means, but it's a comforting thought, that Revan's hard-earned wisdom might permeate the Force as a subtle guiding light for future generations. As the embers glow low, we feel the gentle weight of Revan's legacy. His story is both tragic and hopeful, a yin-yang of the Force. It reminds us that identity is not fixed. Even if we make terrible choices, we can find our way back. With that soothing moral, we leave the tale of Revan, letting him fade into the ancient mists. Our next stop takes us to a well-known character who, unlike Revan, chose exile over confrontation after a devastating defeat. A little green Jedi Master on a remote swampy world, guarding his own secrets. Yoda's hidden exile? Why the Grand Master chose Dagobah. Failed I have. Into exile I must go. With those words in Revenge of the Sith, Master Yoda resigned himself to retreat after his climactic duel with Darth Sidious. We find him next as an old hermit in The Empire Strikes Back, living in a dank swamp on the planet Dagobah. But why Dagobah of all places? And how did the greatest Jedi Master evade the Emperor's far-reaching sight for decades? In the quiet musings of fans, a theory emerged that Yoda's choice of refuge was very deliberate. Dagobah held a secret that shielded him. The theory goes that Dagobah is home to a powerful dark side presence, a cave saturated with darkness, which actually helped cloak Yoda's immense light side aura. In the Force, Yoda shines like a bright star. Normally, someone like Darth Sidious could possibly sense him across the galaxy, but Dagobah's infamous dark side cave acted like a veil. This cave, as Luke learns during his training, is a place where the dark side is strong. Canonically, we know a powerful Darksider died there long ago, tainting that spot. In Legends lore, a rogue Dark Jedi, or a species called Bukfashi Dark Jedi, was killed on Dagobah by a Jedi around the time of Yoda's youth, infusing the cave with a lingering dark energy. Yoda was aware of this. He even had a vision of the cave during the Clone Wars. When the Empire rose, Yoda chose Dagobah specifically because being near that concentrated darkness would effectively camouflage his own light in the Force. It's a brilliant and ironic strategy. The Jedi Master hides right next to a source of evil, using it as a curtain. The Emperor scours the galaxy for any strong light side tremors but finds none, because Yoda is essentially hiding in a dark side blind spot. As a result, Yoda spends about 20 years undetected, meditating and communing with the Force in relative peace, despite the dark aura nearby. This theory lends a tranquil sense of purpose to Yoda's exile. Rather than being simply a defeated warrior in random solitude, he becomes a wise strategist even in hiding. Picture Yoda arriving on Dagobah after his escape from Coruscant, his spirit heavy with sorrow, yet determined. He closes his eyes, reaches out in the Force, and feels the nexus of darkness in that cave. He might murmur. Mask my presence, this place will. With a weary sigh, he settles nearby, choosing a humble hut within walking distance of the cave, the stench of the dark side ever present, yet oddly comforting in its utility. He's not afraid of it. He knows it's the safest place for him to be. Indeed, in Empire Strikes Back, Luke is drawn to that cave and experiences a haunting vision of Darth Vader. Yoda knows exactly what the cave is and implies to Luke that it's a trial of facing inner darkness. Fans extrapolate that Yoda himself likely confronted that cave when he first arrived, perhaps facing a manifestation of Sidious or his own failures in a deeply personal trial. How long must Yoda have sat outside that cave in the drizzle, eyes closed, making peace with the dark shadow next door? It's a poignant image of the defeated Grand Master slowly finding balance within himself, even as darkness swirls around that swamp. There's also a softer, more mystical side to Yoda's Dagobah stay. We learn that Qui-Gon Jinn's spirit guided Yoda to learn the path of immortality, Force Ghost technique, during the Clone Wars. Qui-Gon led Yoda to Dagobah in the Clone Wars series, Season 6, where Yoda heard Qui-Gon's voice among the Fireflies and was taught to commune with the Force, living and cosmic. Dagobah, for whatever reason, was a safe haven for that training, a pure place despite the dark cave. Perhaps the intensity of the Force on Dagobah, light and dark both, made it an ideal training ground for learning to transcend death. So Yoda's exile wasn't just hiding, it was preparation. He was completing his training, readying to guide future generations, like Luke, when the time came. Fan musings sometimes imagine Luke, years after Episode 6, returning to Dagobah in a reflective mood. In his mind's eye, Luke remembers how warm and wise Yoda was in that cold swamp, a singular light in the muck and mire. Did Luke ever realize that Yoda was hiding next to a dark side cave? Perhaps Obi-Wan's spirit told him later, or Luke put it together when he grew more learned. It adds another layer of respect for Yoda. Even in defeat, he was clever and forward-thinking. In our quiet narrative, Yoda's time on Dagobah feels almost monastic. He is like a kindly monk who built his hut on the edge of a haunted forest, using the forest's darkness as both test and cover. There, amid the croaking frogs and misty bogs, he waited with infinite patience. He communed with the living creatures, embraced the natural force around him, and let the galaxy evolve until the moment was right. The emergence of Luke and Leia as new hope. We take a gentle comfort in this image. Yoda, cross-legged on a log, eyes closed, while just beyond, the dark cave quietly pulsates, unable to harm him and in fact, shielding him. It teaches us that sometimes, to protect the light, one might hide in the very shadow of darkness, yet not be overcome by it. Yoda's light was unextinguished, merely hidden until a new dawn. As we bid farewell to Dagobah's twilight swamps, our minds drift to another Jedi Master whose fate was uncertain after the same dreadful war. Unlike Yoda, his end was violent and sudden. Or was it? A gust of wind rustles the campfire and the name comes to us. Mace Windu. Did the fearless champion of the Jedi truly die that night in Coruscant's Sky Throne chamber? Or did the Force have other plans for him? Did Mace Windu survive? The fate of the Purple Blade Master. The scene is vivid in every fan's memory. Mace Windu, the Jedi Master with the regal purple lightsaber, is struck by Darth Sidious's lightning and hurled out a high window into the Coruscant night. It appears to be a tragic end, the moment Anakin seals his fall by betraying Mace. For years that seemed final, but Star Wars fans love a good survival story, as we've seen with Maul and Boba Fett, and a persistent theory took root. What if Mace Windu survived the fall? Imagine the aftermath of that fateful confrontation. It's night, rain is falling, and the neon glow of the city lights flickers on the window ledge where Mace was blasted out. Perhaps, just perhaps, Mace isn't dead. Not yet. Severely injured, he lost a hand to Anakin's saber, coursing with pain from Force lightning, but alive. We could picture him free-falling, barely conscious, when instinct kicks in. As a last act, He cushions his descent with the Force or lands on a speeder top that breaks his fall. He might be broken and scarred, but his story might not have ended there. This theory gained so much traction that Samuel L. Jackson himself, Mace's actor, is a vocal proponent of it. He loves to tell fans, "Mace Windu is alive," with a grin. In fact, at a 20th anniversary event for Revenge of the Sith, Jackson proudly declared to a cheering crowd, "Mace lives." Even George Lucas reportedly agreed informally that it's possible Mace survived. Lucas apparently told Jackson, "Sure he's not dead," in a lighthearted exchange. With the blessing of Mace's real-world persona, the theory blossomed from wishful thinking to something more credible in fans' eyes. One can approach it gently like this. Jedi have survived great falls before. We've seen Anakin and Obi-Wan take leaps and tumbles from tremendous heights in Coruscant's skylanes. We've seen Luke survive a long fall in Cloud City by destiny, landing on a weather vane. And crucially, we've seen Darth Maul survive being cut in half and falling down a reactor shaft through sheer hatred and the dark side. If a dark side user could cling to life through anger, perhaps a light side master could cling to life through the Force and sheer will. Mace Windu was extraordinarily powerful and determined. If anyone could manage an against-the-odds survival, he could. Fans like to spin tales of what happened next in this hypothetical scenario. Possibly, Mace Windu went into hiding much like Yoda and Obi-Wan did. The galaxy was immediately a very dangerous place for Jedi after Order 66, and Mace would have been public enemy #1 as the one who nearly killed Palpatine. Perhaps he escaped into the lower levels of Coruscant or onto a smuggler's ship and left the planet. Some imagine Mace might have been disillusioned. Everything he fought for crumbled in an instant. In hiding, he might question the old Jedi ways, perhaps even flirt with darkness in his bitterness or desire for revenge. His lightsaber form, Vapad, was about channeling darkness after all. There are even playful fan notions that a character like Snoke could have been Mace in twisted form, scarred, bald, and seeking to destroy the Skywalker lineage out of a warped vendetta. That specific theory, Snoke, Balrog's Mace, is quite far-fetched, but it shows how the idea of Mace's survival was used to fill blanks in the later saga. A calmer vision of Mace's survival is more poetic. After losing his hand and being betrayed by the Chosen One he distrusted, Mace learns humility and empathy. He might have spent years as a wanderer, helping people in small ways, but avoiding the spotlight. Maybe he even discovered evidence of the burgeoning rebellion and chose to stay in the shadows to avoid drawing Imperial wrath to them. We don't know, but it's intriguing to muse on. What's particularly heartwarming is that this theory carries a note of hope. Mace Windu's presumed death is a sad moment in Revenge of the Sith. Imagining him alive means one more Jedi out there, a guardian of peace possibly biding his time. It means the light wasn't completely snuffed out that night. Many fans would love to see an older, one-handed Mace reappear in a future story. Samuel L. Jackson certainly would. Until then, the idea lives on in that delightful realm of possibility. It's the same realm that once kept Maul's survival a fan rumor until it became real on screen. As you drift in and out of sleep, you might picture Mace Windu, gray in the hair, hiding his purple blade under a cloak, watching from afar as Luke's new Jedi rise, or as the Empire falls at Endor. Perhaps a faint, satisfied smile crosses his weathered face, knowing the war was won without him needing to show himself. In the stillness, one can almost hear him intone in that stern voice. There is no passion. There is serenity. Maybe Mace found his serenity after all, living to see balance restored from the shadows. With that hopeful thought, we gently close the book on Master Windu's tale. Whether it ended on Coruscant or years later in secrecy, it remains inspiring. Our journey now leads us to consider that very notion of balance he fought for, embodied in an ancient prophecy that guided the Jedi and shaped the saga. The Chosen One prophecy. Balance in the Force. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored. This ancient prophecy looms over the Star Wars saga, casting both light and shadow on the Jedi's decisions. It was the reason Qui-Gon Jinn was so excited about young Anakin. It was repeated by Mace Windu and Yoda with equal parts hope and worry. But what does the Chosen One prophecy truly mean? Fans have debated this for decades, especially as the story continued beyond Anakin's lifetime. In our gentle exploration, let's unravel some of the theories and interpretations surrounding this prophetic riddle. First, according to George Lucas's own view, and thus the traditional reading, Anakin Skywalker was the Chosen One, and he did fulfill the prophecy, but not in the way the Jedi expected. Lucas explained that the balance of the Force meant the eradication of the Sith, the embodiment of the greedy, selfish dark side. When Anakin destroyed Emperor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, in Return of the Jedi, sacrificing himself to save Luke, he eliminated the Sith Lords, Sidious and himself, Vader. Thus, balance was restored, the intense dark side influence waned, and the Force was at peace. The Jedi of the prequels, however, misinterpreted how this would happen. They thought the Chosen One would never fall to darkness, perhaps would reform the Republic, etc. Yoda admits in Episode 3, a prophecy that misread could have been. Indeed, the prophecy was true, but the path to its fulfillment was through Anakin's personal descent and redemption, which the Jedi did not foresee. Lucas noted that the Jedi's rigidity blinded them, and balance came at great cost. Now fans have expanded on this or posed alternate takes. Was balance truly the elimination of the Sith? Or is balance a more nuanced equilibrium between light and dark? The Mortis arc, as we discussed, hints that balance is about containment of both sides, not elimination. Some fans argue the Jedi perhaps misunderstood the prophecy entirely. That true balance might mean the Jedi Order also had to be reset, since by the end of Episode 6, most Jedi were gone and most Sith were gone, a kind of equilibrium. There's a theory that Anakin did bring balance twice. First in a dark way by ending the old Jedi, leaving 2 Jedi and 2 Sith circa A New Hope, a sad symmetry, and second in a light way by destroying the Sith in Return of the Jedi. Balance in that view wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing state that needed to be maintained. Then came the sequel trilogy, which complicated matters by reintroducing Palpatine, albeit in a cloned form, manipulating events. This led some to question if Anakin's victory was temporary. Within the story, the rise of Skywalker has the spirits of Jedi, including Anakin, encourage Rey to restore balance as I did. That implies Anakin did his part, but balance can tip again if evil returns. So perhaps the prophecy was true from a certain point of view. Anakin did bring balance for a time, but the work of balance is never over. Fans sometimes theorize that the Chosen One prophecy could be cyclical, or misinterpreted as singular when it's part of a continuum of renewal. Another interesting fan theory is that the prophecy didn't necessarily refer to Anakin alone, but to his lineage, the Skywalker family as a whole. After all, Anakin's destiny was fulfilled with the help of Luke, who refused to kill Vader, facilitating Vader's return to the light. And later Rey, who though a Palpatine by blood, adopts the Skywalker name, finally ends Palpatine's threat. One might say together the Skywalker legacy brought enduring balance. Perhaps the Force cared less about individuals and more about a bloodline that would correct the imbalance over generations. This isn't stated explicitly anywhere in canon, but it's a way to view the sequels and original trilogy as one big saga of balancing the Force. There's also a gentle theory that maybe balance of the Force meant internally balancing the light and dark within oneself. This is more of a philosophical take, that the old Jedi Order's rejection of all attachment and emotion was an overcorrection toward light, and the Sith were an overcorrection toward darkness. The Chosen One, be it Anakin or someone else, might be the one who can reconcile the two. Some fans point to Luke in Return of the Jedi as achieving balance internally. He uses aggression to defeat Vader, tapping into darkness briefly, but stops out of compassion, staying in the light. Likewise, Rey and Ben Solo's unique Force dyad, one from darkness coming back to light, one from light who had dark heritage, could represent a balance. These are more interpretive ideas that the saga doesn't spell out, but they make for lovely late-night contemplation. Perhaps bringing balance is not about external war at all, but about inner harmony. Of course, within the story, the simplest resolution is that Anakin was the Chosen One. StarWars.fandom.com. George Lucas has said as much, and even after all events, Anakin's pivotal role in destroying the Sith stands. Even in The Rise of Skywalker, when balance is threatened again, it's notable that Anakin's voice urges Rey on, so in a way he's still contributing to balance being upheld. For those of us falling asleep to these thoughts, there's something comforting about the idea of a grand design in the Force. The notion that through all the chaos of galactic history, there was a prophecy, a light at the end of the tunnel, gives a mythic structure to the saga. It's like a gentle guiding star. The Chosen One prophecy is that star, often obscured by clouds sometimes misunderstood, but shining in the background. Let's recall one detail. In Revenge of the Sith novelization and commentary, Lucas noted the Jedi had misread the prophecy. They thought Anakin would destroy the Sith without destroying the Jedi. Instead, balance came only after the Jedi Order, as they knew it was gone too. This humbling lesson suggests the Force ultimately did what was needed, not what the Jedi expected. Yoda realizes this in the end and passes on the lesson to Luke, to not repeat the Jedi's hubris. In a soft, reflective sense, the prophecy teaches us about patience and open-mindedness. Things may not unfold as we predict, but perhaps there is an underlying balance being sought in life's events. For the Jedi, it was learning that their rigidity contributed to imbalance. For Anakin, it was realizing that fulfilling his destiny meant an act of love, saving his son, rather than an act of conquest. Balance came through compassion, a quiet, powerful message. We can now let the prophecy's ambiguity float in our minds like a poetic riddle. It's okay that we don't have all the answers. Even Yoda didn't. What matters is that in the end, balance was achieved and the dark was defeated, at least for a good long while. And that gives a sense of peace, as if the Force itself lets out a satisfied sigh. Our next theory delves into one of the personal tragedies of Revenge of the Sith, a moment intertwined with Anakin's fall and Palpatine's rise. It's time to gently examine the passing of Padme Amidala, and a dark theory about what, or who, truly caused her death. Padme's death? Was it Palpatine's doing? It is among the most heartbreaking moments in Star Wars. Padme Amidala, former queen and loving wife to Anakin, dies in childbirth, having lost the will to live, as the medical droid says. Meanwhile, in eerie parallel, Anakin, now Darth Vader, is reborn in his iron armor, fueled by rage. The film presents Padme's death as if her spirit just couldn't go on after Anakin's betrayal. But some fans found this unsatisfying or incomplete. Thus emerged a poignant and sinister theory. Padme didn't simply lose the will to live. She was killed through the Force by Palpatine, who siphoned her life to save Anakin. Consider how the scenes intercut. As Padme is dying, Vader is struggling to live on the operating table. The theory suggests that Darth Sidious, Palpatine, used his dark powers to drain Padme's life essence and channel it into Anakin to keep him alive. Palpatine had hinted to Anakin earlier about the ability to save lives through the dark side, the legend of Plagueis. Perhaps Palpatine decided to perform this grotesque sacrificial ritual, exchanging Padme's life for Vader's. In Revenge of the Sith, when Vader in anguish asks, "Where is Padme? Is she safe?" Palpatine coldly answers, "It seems in your anger you killed her." On the surface, he's lying to torment Vader, but the theory posits another layer. Palpatine is deflecting blame, when in fact he knows precisely why Padme died, because he killed her, or at least exploited her weakening connection to the living force to ensure his new apprentice survives. Fans supporting this theory point out a few haunting clues. Padme was medically healthy. For reasons we can't explain, we are losing her, says the droid. It's as if some external force is pulling at her life. Meanwhile, we have precedent in lore that powerful Sith can indeed drain life from afar. In the Clone Wars series, Palpatine demonstrated he could telepathically choke someone light years away. So distance is no obstacle to his dark reach. Also consider Palpatine's line to Anakin earlier. To cheat death is a power only one has achieved, but if we work together, I know we can discover the secret. Perhaps he already knew the secret, one that required taking life from someone else. He just framed it as a power they'd find, to tempt Anakin without revealing he might have to sacrifice Padme. How cruelly ironic, if true. Anakin turned to the dark side to save Padme, but in the end the dark side, via Sidious, is what kills her. Now, from a storytelling perspective, this theory gives more weight to Padme's demise. It's not that she just gave up, it's that she was robbed. Palpatine's evil would thus extend to snuffing out the last bit of goodness in Anakin's life, cementing Vader's suffering and loyalty to the dark. When Vader takes his first mechanical breaths and Palpatine stands over him, perhaps at that very moment Padmé's last breath leaves her, stolen to fuel Vader's twisted rebirth. It's tragic and horrific, yes, but it fits Palpatine's character, cunning, omniscient, and willing to do anything. There's an added wrinkle fans discuss. Did Palpatine know Padmé was carrying twins? Possibly not. He might have thought only of eliminating her to sever Vader's emotional ties, thus making him more dependent on the Emperor. In doing so, Palpatine unknowingly left Luke and Leia alive, the very new hope that would lead to his undoing. Some see a poetic justice in that. Palpatine's unnatural meddling gave him Vader, but sowed the seeds of future balance through the Skywalker children. This theory isn't officially confirmed in canon. Novelizations and Lucas's own words suggest Padmé truly lost the will to live. But it remains a favorite fanfics for Padmé's death. It transforms her demise from a somewhat nebulous cause into a deliberate act of evil by Sidious. It also ties Padmé directly into the larger theme of life for life that Palpatine spoke of. Fans sometimes reference a particular piece of dialogue cut from the film drafts where Palpatine might have said something during Vader's operation, implying he was doing something through the dark side. While that didn't make the final cut, the parallel editing speaks volumes. For a moment, let's imagine the dark serenity of Palpatine's perspective. In his private chamber, he sits in meditation as events unfold. He can sense Anakin's life fading after the duel on Mustafar. Far away, Padmé is dying after Anakin's assault, but still alive, hanging by a thread. Palpatine closes his eyes, extends his clawed fingers, and grips Padmé's life through the Force. He siphons her energy, snuffing out her flicker like pinching a candle, and pours that vitality across space into Anakin's broken form. Anakin's heart, strengthened by this infusion, refuses to stop. The surgical droids marvel that Lord Vader clings tenaciously to life. At the same time, on Polis Massa, the medics are baffled as Padmé slips away despite their best efforts. It is as if some invisible hand has plucked out her spirit. She uses her last strength to name her children and dies with a final tear, not knowing that her life directly sustained the monster that consumed her beloved. It's a chilling bedtime story, to be sure. Yet strangely, it also spares Padmé from the notion that she gave up. Instead, she becomes one more victim of Palpatine's horrific manipulations, which feels tragically consistent. It also adds a bitter layer to Vader's existence. He literally lives because his master killed the woman he loved. Vader's life is an extended nightmare built on Padmé's stolen life force. No wonder he's angry and miserable. As we pull away from this dark theory, we might also consider Padmé's own agency. Another interpretation, not incompatible with the above, is that Padmé, through her love, chose to transfer her remaining life to save her children or even to save Anakin's soul. An essay by a fan once posited, Padmé willed Anakin to live with her final breath, unintentionally fueling Darth Vader's survival. Alternatively, some speculated that Anakin himself inadvertently drained Padmé through their strong Force bond when he turned to the dark side, a tragic accident of their connection. These softer variations still frame it as a mystical cause rather than just heartbreak. In any case, as we drift off imagining these possibilities, Padmé's memory wraps around us like a bittersweet lullaby. We hear her ruminations theme, that plaintive melody from episode 3, and remember her as the symbol of hope and love she was. Perhaps in the Force, Padmé's essence continued to watch over her children in ways unseen. In the end, her love did indirectly lead to Anakin's redemption. Luke and Leia, her living legacy, were the keys to bringing their father back to the light. We exhale and let the sorrow of Padmé's fate settle softly. It reminds us that even in a tale of prophecy and cosmic powers, personal love and tragedy play a profound role. From this intimate sorrow, let's turn our attention to a different kind of survival story, one that captured fans' imaginations for decades until it finally became canon. Time to talk about a certain notorious bounty hunter and how he escaped a gruesome fate. Boba Fett lives, escaping the Sarlacc pit. For a long time, one of the biggest what-ifs in Star Wars was the fate of Boba Fett. the enigmatic bounty hunter who met an ignominious end in Return of the Jedi. With a jetpack mishap and a Wilhelm scream, Boba fell into the gaping maw of the Sarlacc, a desert monster that digests its victims over 1,000 years. It felt almost comical that such a cool character went out that way. Fans were not convinced. Around campfires and convention halls, they spun theories of Boba Fett's survival, and those theories became almost legend. In fact, the idea of Boba climbing out of the Sarlacc was so popular that it appeared in the old expanded universe tales, and years later was officially confirmed on screen. Let's wind back to before that confirmation, when it was just a beloved theory. How might Boba have survived? Well, fans imagined his Mandalorian armor, made of near-indestructible Beskar steel, could protect him from the Sarlacc's digestive acids. Perhaps unconscious or injured from the fall, Boba awakens in the vile stomach, surrounded by slimy walls and the remains of other victims. With limited oxygen and time, he keeps his cool. Fett is nothing if not resourceful. He's loaded with weaponry, concussion grenades, flame projectors, a jetpack, albeit malfunctioning, and that sharp intellect. Many theorized he used his flamethrower to burn the Sarlacc's insides, causing it to writhe in pain and perhaps vomit him out. Others imagined he carved his way through with explosives. Some EU stories had Boba actually telepathically communicating with the Sarlacc, which in Legends had a slow, sentient mind, driving it into a spasm. One comic story depicted him blasting free and then being found by Jawas, with temporary amnesia. For years, these accounts were part of unofficial lore, but they kept the idea alive that Boba Fett is not dead. Fans cherished that notion. Boba was simply too tenacious to die so pitifully. Every so often in the playground of speculation, someone would confidently say, Boba Fett actually crawled out of the Sarlacc. It became a piece of common fan culture, a fun trivia that wasn't canon on screen, but felt true in spirit. Even the actor who portrayed young Boba's father, Jango, Temuera Morrison, would hint that he'd love to see Boba return. The persistence of this theory paid off. In recent times, The Mandalorian show and the Book of Boba Fett finally depicted Boba's canonical escape. He indeed survives by fire and fury inside the beast, punching through the sand to freedom. Seeing it realized was like a collective fan dream given form. A legend that fans kept alive through the lullaby of theory had become part of the official saga. What does this tell us in universe? It cements that Boba Fett was every bit the survivor we imagined, digesting for 1,000 years? Not for Boba. He turned what should have been a death sentence into just another scrape. It adds to his mythos. He's the man who cheated death itself in the belly of the beast. Like a galactic Jonah, Boba emerged reborn. The series even used that metaphor, showing him clawing out of the sand like a symbolic rebirth. On a thematic level, the enduring Boba survival theory speaks to how Star Wars fans collectively influenced the franchise's evolution. What began as playground chatter and comic one-shots became full-fledged story. There's something comforting in that. The idea that if enough people believe in a story, it can come true, at least in fiction. It reminds one of telling tales by the fire. The more you tell it, the more real it feels. And eventually, even the official storytellers listen to those embers of imagination. Picture Boba after his escape. Scarred, exhausted, covered in sticky Sarlacc bile, but alive. He lies under Tatooine's twin suns, maybe laughing a little to himself in disbelief and triumph. In Legends, he's rescued by Dungar, another bounty hunter, shortly after. In canon, Jawas strip his armor, and Tusken Raiders find him. Either way, he lives to fight another day. He likely spends a good time recovering from the trauma, both physical and mental, of that experience. It's something that would profoundly change a person. Indeed, the Book of Boba Fett portrays him as wiser, perhaps gentler, in a gruff way, after bonding with the Tuskens. Death can have that effect. A brush with it often transforms one's perspective. For fans drifting off to this gentle retelling, the Boba Fett survival story is oddly reassuring. It says, even when it looks like the end, sometimes it isn't. In the darkest pit, a spark of determination and a flamethrower can ignite hope. Boba's tale is about defying the odds, which is a classic feel-good theme wrapped in a gritty, badass package. As our minds settle, we recall how for years the idea of Boba's survival lingered like a pleasant wish in the back of many minds. It's a testament to Star Wars magic that such wishes can become part of the grand tapestry. Now that Boba's alive in canon, the theory isn't a theory anymore but history. Still, remembering how it was just a theory for so long adds a layer of dream come true to his story. From one improbable survival to another, our next segment deals with someone perhaps even less likely to have escaped death. If being digested for a millennium was survivable, how about being literally cut in half? Time to talk Darth Maul, the Sith with anger so intense that even death couldn't stop him. Darth Maul's hate, surviving being. Cut in half. Darth Maul's return was one of those twists that went from fan speculation to official canon, much like Boba Fett's survival. When The Phantom Menace debuted in 1999, audiences were immediately struck by Darth Maul, the menacing Zabrak Sith with red and black tattoos and a double-bladed lightsaber. He seemed to embody pure dark side fury. Yet by the film's end, he was defeated, sliced in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi and sent plummeting down a reactor shaft. It looked quite final, but fans enamored with Maul's design and presence hoped otherwise. For years there were murmurs. Could Maul have lived? It seemed absurd physically, but this is the galaxy of the Force. And indeed, long before it was confirmed, some fans theorized Maul survived through sheer hatred and the power of the dark side. A popular saying that emerged, if Darth Maul could survive being bisected, it was through his anger alone. That turned out to be basically true. In the Clone Wars animated series 2012, Maul made his shocking re-entrance, and his story from Legends of Surviving was officially reimagined. The explanation given, Maul's intense rage combined with his connection to the dark side, kept him alive as he fell down that pit. Gravity, shock, and even being cut in two were not enough to extinguish the fire of his vengeance. Using the Force, Maul managed to slow his fall or guide himself into a trash tunnel. Mortally wounded but not yielding, he was dumped with refuse on the junk planet Lotho Minor. There, sustained by his hatred for Obi-Wan, Maul refused to die. Over time, his warped strength in the dark side literally held his broken body together. Legends said he cauterized his wounds with the Force, which the film visuals implied anyway as lightsaber cuts are hot. Eventually, driven mad by pain and isolation, Maul constructed makeshift cybernetic legs from scrap and became a lurking creature, half spider, half Zabrak, living off vermin. For over a decade, he survived in this wretched form, fueled solely by the desire for revenge. When found by his brother Savage Opress, Maul's mind was fractured, yet the spark of malice still burned within. Once healed and refitted with proper cybernetic legs, Maul returned to galactic affairs with a vengeance, literally, seeking out Obi-Wan for a reckoning. This outcome was beyond what most casual fans expected, but interestingly, the seeds were in fan theories in some earlier media. One non-canon comic story, Old Wounds, had depicted an old cybernetic Maul tracking Obi-Wan to Tatooine. The idea was in the zeitgeist. Maul was too compelling to truly kill. Dave Filoni, showrunner of the Clone Wars, mentioned that George Lucas himself decided to bring Maul back, feeling there was more potential and perhaps sensing fans would welcome it. He wasn't wrong. Maul's arc in the Clone Wars and later Star Wars Rebels became one of the richest subplots, turning him into a surprisingly nuanced villain with a long trajectory of tragedy and wrath. From a dreamy thematic perspective, Maul's survival story emphasizes how the dark side can sustain life, but in a twisted, tormented way. Yoda had warned in Episode 3, the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. We often associate that line with Palpatine cheating death, cloning, etc., but Maul is an embodiment of it too. It's unnatural for a being cut in half to live. It's fueled by an extreme imbalance, pure hatred and refusal to let go. So in a sense, Maul surviving isn't a triumph, it's a curse. He endured, but an unending agony of body and mind. Fans sometimes compare Maul's clinging to life with Anakin Vader's. Both were left for dead due to Obi-Wan in their eyes. Both were mutilated, and both survived via the dark side. Vader perhaps not consciously, but the promise of dark power and hate at the end on Mustafar certainly kept him alive until Palpatine saved him. However, where Vader eventually found redemption and peace, Maul did not. His life post-TPM was an almost ceaseless quest for power and revenge to fill the void, a path that led nowhere ultimately. In Rebels, an older Maul is still chasing Obi-Wan, still defined by his hate until the very end, when Obi-Wan swiftly ends Maul's life for good in a final duel. In Maul's dying moments, he finds a small solace hearing that Obi-Wan is protecting the Chosen One. In a twisted way, even at the end, Maul hopes that this Chosen One, Luke, will avenge them all by destroying the Sith, giving his life's pain some meaning. Then he dies, cradled by his old enemy like a final piece. It's poetic that Obi-Wan gives Maul a kind of mercy in the end. But before that curtain fall, Maul lived quite the second life, running a criminal empire, tangling with Darth Sidious, who cruelly remarked that he was a broken tool but still used him as bait, and later trying to groom Ezra Bridger as an apprentice. Maul's journey from Phantom Menace to Rebels is something no one would have imagined in 1999, except those persistent fans who dared to ask what if, under the stars, spinning possibilities. So as we doze to the idea of impossible survivals, Maul's tale stands as a dark mirror to Boba's. Boba crawled out and eventually had a chance at a better life among Tuskens, seeking to rule with respect. Maul crawled out and plunged straight back into darkness, defined wholly by vengeance. Both cheated death. Their choices afterward made all the difference. In the quiet of our minds, we salute the power of fan belief. Darth Maul's survival went from a wild theory to mainstream acceptance to canonical fact. It reminds us that in this galaxy, no one's ever really gone if the story isn't finished. And sometimes even death can be a pit stop rather than a destination. With Maul's restless spirit finally at peace by Obi-Wan's hand, we gently close that chapter. Now our next musing concerns a puzzle that gripped fans after The Force Awakens: the identity of a certain supreme leader. It's time to unravel the speculative web around Snoke and the many faces fans thought he might wear. The many identities of Snoke, a puzzle for the ages. When Supreme Leader Snoke first appeared in The Force Awakens, 2015, as a giant holographic figure, fans immediately asked, who is this mysterious dark side user? He wasn't familiar from past movies, yet clearly powerful and in charge of the First Order. With little context given, the fandom's collective imagination went into overdrive. Over the next 2 years leading to The Last Jedi, Snoke theories became a delightful and sometimes intense part of Star Wars discourse. Let's walk through some of the most popular Snoke identity theories, gently examining each like pieces of an interstellar jigsaw. 1. Snoke is Darth Plagueis. This was arguably the most popular theory pre-Last Jedi. The logic was tantalizing. Plagueis was Palpatine's master, said to have cheated death. If anyone could resurface as a new big bad, why not him? Snoke's gaunt, scarred appearance even vaguely resembled the moon species Plagueis had in Legends. Fans noted musical cues. When Palpatine told Anakin that Darth Plagueis the wise tale in Revenge of the Sith, John Williams composed an eerie theme. Strikingly, Snoke's theme in The Force Awakens sounded similar. Could it be an intentional hint that Snoke saw Kotas Plagueis? Many believed so. The theory posited that Plagueis survived Palpatine's assassination attempt by using his famed midi-chlorian manipulation to keep himself alive, albeit horrendously disfigured. He then hid for decades, and after Palpatine's fall, he emerged as Snoke to reclaim control. This theory nicely tied the sequels to the prequel lore, giving a deep-rooted significance to Snoke. However, Pablo Hidalgo of the Lucasfilm Story Group eventually debunked it publicly, stating Plagueis was truly dead. Despite that, some fans held on to a certain point of view hope until The Last Jedi showed Snoke's fate. 2. Snoke is Emperor Palpatine in disguise or spirit. A less popular but circulating idea. Maybe Palpatine somehow survived, or persisted as a spirit, and was masquerading as Snoke. Evidence? Not much concrete, mostly gut feeling that Palpatine was too important to not be involved. This ended up partially true in Episode 9, though Snoke himself was revealed as a Strandcast puppet of Palpatine, something few predicted that early on. 3. Snoke is Mace Windu. Now, this theory was on the far-fetched side but gained traction in some corners of the internet. Why Mace? Well, Mace Windu had a strong connection to the Force and a hatred for the Sith. If he survived his fall, as we theorized earlier, perhaps he was twisted by bitterness into a dark figure. Snoke's facial structure, especially before seeing him clearly, and his tendency to speak with a bit of an eloquent cadence, led a few creative minds to imagine a scarred, pale Mace wanting revenge on the Skywalker lineage, since Anakin cost him everything. People would point out, Mace had a unique perspective, flirting with the dark, Vaapad style. Maybe his fall from the window and injuries made him snap. This was always an extreme long shot, often discussed tongue-in-cheek, and logically it made little sense. But it shows how willing fans were to consider any known character as Snoke in disguise, even a Jedi Master turned evil. 4. Snoke is Jar Jar Binks, or other wild left-field picks. Yes, inevitably the meme-worthy suggestions emerged. Snoke? Jar Jar was floated half-jokingly. Just as Darth Jar Jar theory had its day, some quipped, maybe Jar Jar, laden with guilt or secret Sith training, became Snoke. It wasn't serious, but it speaks to how Snoke speculation permeated all levels of fandom, from serious lore crafting to comedic riffs. Other outlandish ones included Snoke being the Grand Inquisitor from Rebels, Snoke being some manifestation of the dark side itself, etc. 5. Snoke is just Snoke, but maybe an ancient dark side user. Some theories avoided linking him to a specific known character, and instead speculated on his backstory. Perhaps Snoke was from the unknown regions, an ancient being who predates the Sith, watching and waiting. Or he could have been one of the Emperor's advisors, or a result of Imperial experiments with the dark side. There were theories he was connected to the Knights of Ren, maybe the original founder of that group from centuries past, awoken now. Others thought he might be related to the Mortis gods somehow, like an embodiment of the dark side similar to the sun. These ideas tried to give Snoke weight by inserting him somewhere deep in the lore, even if he wasn't someone we'd met. Through all this, the sequels themselves were quiet, fueling the fervor. When The Last Jedi arrived and, spoiler alert, unceremoniously killed Snoke without revealing his past, it subverted many expectations. Some fans were disappointed, all that theorizing, and we still didn't officially know who he was. Ultimately, The Rise of Skywalker provided the answer. Snoke was a Strandcast clone, created by Palpatine, a puppet ruler to manipulate Kylo Ren and the First Order. In hindsight, one could trace a few clues. Snoke's theme music contains a hint of Palpatine's theme, and novelizations mention he had secrets of the unknown regions that tie to Palpatine's contingency. But realistically, few predicted that exact twist early on. The journey of Snoke's identity speculation was almost more rewarding than the reveal. It united fans in fun debate and kept us all theorizing late into nights, which, in a meta way, is what we're doing now in this sleepy exploration. The Snoke theories show how Star Wars invites participatory storytelling. Even when the official story zigzags unexpectedly, the ideas fans spun are still enjoyable what-ifs. Some of those discarded theories might surface in other forms. For instance, Darth Plagueis remains a compelling character awaiting more story, and Mace's survival is not off the table. For a relaxing reflection, consider Snoke's role in a mythic sense. He was a red herring of ultimate evil, meant to recall Palpatine's archetype. Perhaps we can imagine that through the Force, the shadow of Palpatine did indeed fall over the galaxy in this form. Every fan theory trying to link Snoke to something meaningful was grasping that he symbolically had to tie into the larger saga. In the end, the films made that literal. He was a literal extension of Palpatine. But the beauty of those speculative days was the creativity unleashed. So as we let go of Snoke's mysteries, we note how gently the sequel trilogy reminded us not to get too attached to our own predictions. Sometimes the simplest answer, Palpatine did it, is what we get, and the real intrigue was the journey. Now, with minds abuzz but bodies relaxed, let's ease into a more philosophical avenue that some of our earlier segments foreshadowed, the idea of gray Jedi and balance beyond the binary. The gray Jedi, between darkness and light. In the vast tapestry of the Force, many of us have wondered, must one be wholly Jedi or Sith, or is there a middle path? Enter the concept of the gray Jedi. This term, largely born from fan imagination and expanded universe musings, refers to those who walk between the light and dark sides. They might use both, or follow the will of the Force rather than the dogma of the Jedi Council. While not officially canon in name, Lucasfilm folks have generally steered away from endorsing a Grey Jedi label. The idea of balance in an individual has captivated fans for a long time. What exactly is a Grey Jedi in theory? A common fan definition: a Force user who has left the Jedi Order or operates independently of it, yet does not fall to the dark side. Instead, they embrace both light and dark aspects in a balanced way. They are gray because they are neither white, pure light, nor black, pure dark, but a mix. They might bend some rules, allow emotion but not let it consume them, perhaps even use what we consider dark side techniques on occasion without succumbing to evil. A beautiful piece of fan lore that circulated is the so-called Grey Jedi Code. It's a fan-written credo that contrasts the Jedi and Sith codes, aiming for harmony/film.com. There is no dark side nor a light side. There is only the Force. I will do what I must to keep the balance. There is no good without evil, but evil must not be allowed to flourish. There is passion, yet peace. Serenity, yet emotion. Chaos, yet order. I am the wielder of the flame, the protector of balance. I am the holder of the torch, lighting the way. I am the watcher of the tide, herald of new ages. I am a Grey Jedi. This fan-created code, or variations of it, circulates widely, showing how richly the fandom developed the Grey concept, even without direct canon basis. It reflects a desire for wholeness, acknowledging one's passions and fears, the things Jedi suppress, while maintaining the Jedi ideals of peace and knowledge. It's quite poetic and comforting in a way. It suggests one can accept the darkness within and still choose the light. Who in Star Wars could be considered a Grey Jedi figure? Fans have pointed to characters like Qui-Gon Jinn, who often defied the Council to follow the Living Force. Some say he was gray and that he followed his own path. Others cite Ahsoka Tano, who left the Jedi Order and in Rebels explicitly says, "I am no Jedi," yet she fights for good with compassionate values. Her white lightsabers symbolically might indicate neutrality. Then there's Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, disillusioned with the dogmatic legacy of the Jedi, yet still a Force champion. In Legends, characters like Jolee Bindo from KOTOR or Kyle Katarn had gray tendencies. They used a mix of abilities and eschewed strict alignment. The term Grey Jedi even appeared in some old source books to describe Jedi who didn't strictly follow the code, but weren't dark, like Qui-Gon or some Jedi who practiced love or more liberal interpretations. However, current canon is hesitant on endorsing the notion that using dark side can be safe. Typically, once you tap into certain dark emotions, they dominate you. So the official stance is gray is not a formal thing. Pablo Hidalgo once said something along the lines of, "We don't consider Grey Jedi a thing. You're either light-leaning or dark-leaning. Balance isn't about a bit of both like that." Even so, The Last Jedi flirts with the philosophy that the Force is beyond such dualities. Recall Luke teaching Rey that powerful light and powerful darkness exist in natural balance. The allure of the Grey Jedi idea is understandable. It suggests a more nuanced, perhaps healthier approach to the Force, one less stringent than prequel Jedi or as selfish as the Sith. It's about balance within oneself. It resonates with many because it mirrors real life. People aren't purely good or bad, and perhaps enlightenment is in acknowledging both aspects inside us and finding equilibrium. Fans often imagine Grey Jedi as those who can feel anger or fear but not be ruled by it, or who can love without becoming possessive, who seek knowledge of all sides of the Force without losing themselves. In a calm campfire scenario, one might envision an order of Grey Jedi as sages who live in the gray twilight of the Force, neither blinded by the light nor consumed by darkness. They could serve as mediators, balancing the cosmic scales as needed. There's even an old EU group that fits somewhat, the Yunsarai, featured in some novels, who were an offshoot blending Sith and Jedi teachings. The name means followers of truth in Sith language. Luke encountered them in Legends, and rather than fight, he made peace and integrated them to an extent. They wore armor inspired by Sith teachings, but fought for justice, very Grey-esque. Another figure fans sometimes raise is Bendu from Rebels, a creature who calls himself the One in the Middle. He's not Jedi or Sith, he just is, embodying a natural balance. He is beyond good and evil from his perspective and quite mysterious. He might be the closest canon example of a truly neutral Force being, demonstrating both friendliness and fury, helping Kanan learn to see with the Force while also later scolding the rebels for disturbing his peace. Bendu shows the Force has levels beyond the binary viewpoints of our usual characters. While the films ultimately reiterate that compassion and selflessness, Jedi ideals, are the true light, the Grey Jedi concept lives on in fanworks, RPGs, and daydreams. It provides a comforting possibility that perhaps the Jedi and Sith both got it somewhat wrong, and that the future lies in a middle way. In fact, after The Last Jedi, some thought that was where the saga would go, Rey starting something new that transcends Jedi and Sith. The Rise of Skywalker didn't fully go there. Rey still identifies with Jedi at the end. But we do see she's someone who embraced her darkest fear, her heritage, and still chose the light, effectively balancing what was inside her. So, as we relax, we can imagine walking a starlit path that runs between two valleys, one bathed in warm light, the other cloaked in shadow. The path is the Grey Jedi's journey. It's quiet here, a gentle breeze blowing. On this path, you acknowledge the beauty of the lighted valley, kindness, harmony, and also the alluring but dangerous shapes in the dark valley, anger, power, yet you remain on the trail in between, keeping both in view but neither overtaking you. It's a peaceful thought, finding equilibrium. Whether or not Grey Jedi officially exist, the idea that balance in the Force might manifest through individuals who accept complexity is a very Star Warsy lesson. It teaches us that balance isn't an abstract, it's something within. And perhaps the ultimate goal of any Jedi, Grey or otherwise, is internal balance, confronting your inner Vader and inner Yoda and making peace between them. With that calming insight drawn from fan philosophy, we drift away from theoretical Force sects and return to a specific story, one touched by this notion of balance and guided by an ancient light. The story of a young Togruta who left the Jedi and walked her own path, aided by the spirit of a powerful Force entity, Ahsoka Tano and the Daughter of Mortis. Ahsoka and the Spirit of the Daughter, a light in the darkness. One of the more mystical threads in Star Wars animation is the bond between Ahsoka Tano and a little owl-like creature named Morai. Fans of the Clone Wars and Rebels know that Morai is more than just a bird. She seems to be the eyes of the daughter, the embodiment of the light side from the Mortis gods. This has led to a beautiful theory. Ahsoka carries the essence of the Daughter of Mortis within her, a gift from when the daughter sacrificed herself to save Ahsoka's life. Let's recount that pivotal event calmly. On Mortis, the sun, Darkside incarnate, struck Ahsoka down, actually killing her. The daughter, Lightside incarnate, had also been mortally wounded in the conflict. With her last strength, the daughter imparted her life force into Ahsoka, resurrecting her. The daughter died so Ahsoka could live, essentially infusing Ahsoka with the pure light of the Force. As the daughter passed, an owl-like convor was seen, a creature associated with her. Ever since this convor, Morai, has silently watched over Ahsoka, following her through the years. Morai appears at key moments, on Malachor after Ahsoka's duel with Vader, for instance, hinting that the daughter's spirit, or at least her proxy, is guarding Ahsoka. The theory, lovingly embraced by fans and even Filoni through sly nods, is that Ahsoka became a sort of avatar of the light after Mortis. Not that she's all-powerful or anything, but she carries a piece of the daughter's essence. This could explain her unique path. She left the Jedi Order but remained a force for good, standing outside orthodox labels. Some even interpret Ahsoka's survival of events like the World Between Worlds, where Ezra saved her from Vader through time, as partly thanks to her connection with a higher power, the daughter's influence guiding these miracles. A compelling bit of evidence is from Rebels. In the series finale epilogue, Ahsoka appears in a radiant white cloak with a staff, almost like a Gandalf the White or some celestial figure. Fans half-jokingly called her Ahsoka the White. It feeds the idea that she transcended being just a former Jedi. She's something of a light side sage. Morai perches nearby in that scene, underscoring that association. Dave Filoni has confirmed Morai is connected to the daughter and is sort of Ahsoka's spiritual companion. He doesn't over-explain it, leaving a touch of mystery, but he clearly placed those pieces intentionally. The mythic resonance here is soothing. It's like Ahsoka has a guardian angel in the form of the daughter's spirit. Morai could be seen as the daughter's eyes, ensuring the one she saved continues to serve the balance. In The Mandalorian, when Ahsoka first appears in live action, an owl-like silhouette is briefly seen, presumably Morai again. It's a subtle detail connecting back to that cosmic event on Mortis that forever marked Ahsoka's destiny. If we view this as a bedtime myth, there was once a brave apprentice, Ahsoka, who was saved from death by the Spirit of Light. Ever after, the spirit, in the form of a small owl, followed her. Through the darkest nights, the owl watched, and the warrior was never truly alone. It's almost fairy tale in simplicity and comfort. It symbolizes that Ahsoka carries hope and light wherever she goes. Fans have even speculated on what this could mean for Ahsoka's ultimate fate. If the daughter's life force flows in her, perhaps Ahsoka is fated to take the daughter's place in some way, perpetuating that balance. In Mortis lore, had Anakin taken the father's place, maybe Ahsoka could have in theory become the next daughter, since the original died. This wasn't how it played out then, but symbolically, outside Mortis, Ahsoka might be fulfilling that role. An embodiment of light guiding the new generation? She mentored Kanan and Ezra a bit, and she'll likely mentor others like Sabine or even Luke, in some off-screen capacity possibly. The Ahsoka-daughter connection also imparts an emotional lesson. Acts of selfless sacrifice, the daughter giving her life, can cast ripples of goodness far into the future. Ahsoka survived to play critical roles in the rebellion and beyond. That one act on Mortis arguably saved untold lives down the line because Ahsoka lived to fight for justice on multiple fronts. For those of us listening to this theory as we drift to sleep, there's a wonderfully reassuring notion, a benevolent spirit watching over a beloved character. It suggests that even in the darkest times, like Ahsoka dueling Vader, nearly dying, or later confronting Imperial remnants, there's a literal embodiment of the light side looking out for her, an extra feather on the scale in favor of hope. We may not see Morai do much, but her presence alone implies Ahsoka is on the right path, that the Force, in its light aspect, is guiding her steps. As we soak in this gentle lore, perhaps we hear the soft hoot of an owl in our mind's ear, a night guardian comforting us. We might picture Ahsoka resting by a campfire in the wilderness, Morai perched above her, eyes glowing softly in the night as sentinel. No harm will befall her without warning. In turn, Ahsoka uses that life and safety to help others. It's a virtuous circle begun by the daughter's grace, bringing it back to the present of our narrative journey. Ahsoka stands as an example of blending canon and mythic ideas, Mortis, etc., to enrich a character's story. She truly has one foot in the tangible world of Star Wars events and one in the ethereal realm of Force mysticism. With that warm, guardian spirit imagery, we transition gently to another character's secret legacy. Just as Ahsoka's life was touched by a hidden connection, so too might one legendary Jedi have left behind a hidden light in the form of a child. For our next theory, we turn our attention to Obi-Wan Kenobi and the question of whether he experienced the one thing Jedi forbade: love and possibly parenthood. Obi-Wan's secret love and the Kenobi lineage. Even Jedi are not immune to love. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the exemplary Jedi Knight, had his heart tested during the Clone Wars by none other than Duchess Satine Kryze of Mandalore. Their deep affection was evident, a tender, forbidden bond. Obi-Wan admitted that had Satine asked, he'd have left the Jedi Order for her. Though he never did, fans have long wondered, did Obi-Wan and Satine ever share more than just words? Could they have had a secret child? Enter the theory of Corky Kryze, Satine's adolescent nephew who appears in the Clone Wars. He has sandy hair, a gentle demeanor, and interestingly, some fans note, a facial resemblance to Obi-Wan. More striking, Corky's parentage is never shown on screen. He calls Satine Aunt Satine, but her only known sibling is Bo-Katan, from the Mandalorian fame, who seems too young to be his mother and never mentioned a son. So who are Corky's parents? The show leaves it open. This vacuum became a playground for speculation. What if Corky is actually Satine and Obi-Wan's son, hidden to avoid scandal? Perhaps Satine became pregnant during the year she and Obi-Wan spent together on the run, when Obi-Wan was assigned to protect her in his youth. Being dedicated to her people and knowing a Jedi couldn't publicly be a father, Satine might have kept the child's true parentage secret. She could have passed off Corky as her nephew, an orphaned child of a non-existent third Kryze sibling, to raise him without drawing attention. The evidence fans cite is circumstantial, but intriguing. Corky's appearance and mannerisms feel like a blend of Satine and Obi-Wan. He's brave, idealistic, a bit cheeky, qualities one might expect from an Obi-Wan offspring. In one episode, Satine is imprisoned, and Corky leads a rescue with some cadets. He shows leadership beyond his years. Obi-Wan, upon meeting Corky, interacts kindly but formally. Of course, he would if it's his secret son in public. When Satine is tragically killed by Darth Maul, one wonders what became of Corky. He's not shown again. Perhaps this was a loose end deliberately left or simply overlooked. But fans adopt the romantic view that Satine and Obi-Wan did share love physically at least once, and Corky was the result. Now, why does this theory captivate so many? Partly because Obi-Wan is such a noble character. Giving him a secret family adds emotional depth. It also connects to the sequels. Rey Kenobi theory piggybacked on this. Some speculated Rey could be a descendant of Kenobi, Obi-Wan's granddaughter perhaps. If Corky or another Kenobi child existed, that lineage could continue to Rey. In fact, Screen Rant and other outlets listed Rey is a Kenobi as a major theory pre-Episode 9. So the idea that Obi-Wan had a secret child served not just as a Clone Wars era headcanon, but also as a possible tie-in to sequel mysteries. Even aside from Rey, the notion that Obi-Wan's compassionate, human side led him to break the rules quietly is endearing. It mirrors how Anakin secretly married and had children, but whereas that ended in tragedy, maybe Obi-Wan's secret could be more bittersweet or even hopeful. It paints Obi-Wan not as a perfect monk, but as a man who once had a chance at normal life and joy, which he sacrificed for duty, adding layers to his stoic sadness in the original trilogy. Imagine a scene not canon, just our musing. After the Empire's rise on Tatooine, Obi-Wan reflects on Satine while looking at the twin sunset. Perhaps he regrets not being able to save her or be with her. In his hut, he keeps a small token Satine gave him. He wonders if their child survived the wars. Maybe in his solitude, he even feels through the Force trying to sense Corky's fate. We don't know Corky's fate canonically. He could have been killed by the Empire's purge of Mandalore or survived in hiding. If Obi-Wan knew of Corky, might he have tried to find him during the long years on Tatooine? Such questions can gently swirl as possibilities. There's a touching fan comic, unofficial, where old Ben Kenobi in the desert receives a letter that Corky lived and had a daughter, implying Obi-Wan has a granddaughter out in the galaxy. In the comic, he smiles quietly at that knowledge, content that his line continues somewhere safe. It's not canon, but it shows how fans yearn for Obi-Wan to have that bit of personal happiness amidst his sacrifices. While the rise of Skywalker went in a different direction for Rey's heritage, Palpatine's granddaughter, not Kenobi's, a Kenobi lineage in Star Wars remains a compelling concept. The Kenobi Disney Plus series didn't touch on Satine or Corky explicitly, though it did mention Satine's sister Bo-Katan in passing. It focused on Obi-Wan and young Leia and dealt with his past trauma. But maybe future stories or even off-screen lore could confirm or deny Corky's parentage. Filoni hasn't confirmed Corky's parentage either way. He often just smirks when asked, letting fans draw their own conclusions for now. So, as a perhaps bedtime fan fable, we can treat this as true for our imagination. Obi-Wan and Satine shared a love that resulted in a son, raised in secret. It casts Obi-Wan's life in a more tragic romantic light. He upheld his Jedi vows, but at the cost of denying his own family. In a dreamy scenario, one might fancy that Luke and Leia weren't the only hope. Somewhere, a descendant of Kenobi might quietly carry forward the legacy of balance, unknown to the main saga. For us drifters, thinking of Obi-Wan having a son like Corky is heartwarming. It means part of him lived on beyond the deserts of Tatooine. Even if Obi-Wan never reunited with Corky, the love that created that child is immortalized in Corky's existence. And if Corky survived Imperial tyranny, then after ROTJ there could be a noble heir of Kenobi out there, perhaps helping rebuild or just living a peaceful life that Obi-Wan never got to have. We sigh softly with that thought. The stoic old Ben deserves that peace of mind in the Force beyond. Perhaps when Obi-Wan became one with the Force, he finally found Satine and maybe met the spirit of their child too if Corky perished. In the netherworld of the Force, as Yoda says, there is no pain, no suffering. One could imagine a reunion beyond life, Obi-Wan, Satine, and their child together in luminous form, smiling and free. And that tender imagery is a fitting note as we near the end of our long journey through theories. But before we conclude, let's not forget one more small but meaningful fan theory that warms the heart. A final lighthearted connection in the original trilogy that became accepted as quasi-canon. The presence of an old clone trooper at the Battle of Endor, who might be more familiar than we realized. Captain Rex at Endor, a fan theory turned canon. Our final segment highlights a fan theory that was so delightful, the creators decided to all but canonize it. It's about an old, white-bearded rebel commando seen briefly in Return of the Jedi during the Battle of Endor. In the film, he was just an extra nicknamed Nick Sant by production. But decades later, after the Clone Wars and Rebels introduced us to Captain Rex, the beloved clone trooper comrade of Anakin and Ahsoka, fans noticed that in Rebels' epilogue, Rex is depicted as an older fellow with a white beard fighting on Endor in the year 4 ABY. The resemblance to Nick Sant was uncanny. Same beard, similar outfit. Could it be that Captain Rex was retconned to be that very Endor commando all along? Dave Filoni, ever playful, strongly hinted at this. At a convention panel, he showed concept art of Rex in Endor camo gear, jokingly saying, "Now why would he need camouflage?" Wink? Pablo Hidalgo even teased, "Speculate away." They didn't straight up confirm it, but definitely encouraged the theory. And in subsequent official materials, it's been semi-officially acknowledged. The Rebels finale explicitly mentions Rex fought at the Battle of Endor. While they stop short of outright saying Rex is Nick Sant, they position Rex in that exact role. This is a charming instance of fans influencing canon. The initial suggestion came from fans who noted the physical likeness and thought, wouldn't it be cool if the old guy on Endor was actually Rex from the cartoons? It made sense timeline-wise. Clones age faster, but by Endor, Rex, biologically in his 70s perhaps, would look like a white-haired older man. Rex had parted ways with the Rebels crew after freeing Lothal, so he was free to join the Rebel Alliance ground forces by ROTJ. The idea felt so right that Filoni embraced it, essentially saying, sure, why not? It doesn't affect the story majorly, but it's a heartwarming connection. Captain Rex, who fought for the Republic and survived all the way through the Galactic Civil War, gets to be present at the final victory over the Empire. A clone who removed his inhibitor chip, fought for freedom, and saw the fall of both Separatists and Empire. What? A life. And for fans, knowing that the guy Han pats on the back in the Endor bunker might be, Rex adds an extra smile when watching ROTJ. Picture the Endor celebration with Ewoks at night. Luke sees the spirits of Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. Meanwhile, off to the side, perhaps Rex stands with an arm around Han or Chewie, laughing and reminiscing. One of the earliest clone troopers now witnessing peace and dancing with furry Ewoks. It brings a sense of closure to the prequel era. One of the original clones lived to see the galaxy liberated. For those falling asleep to this, it's almost like hearing that an old war veteran grandfather lived to see the war won and then enjoyed a happy twilight. We become fond of these clones through the Clone Wars series, and Rex is maybe the most beloved. Knowing he made it affirms the saga's theme of hope. It also underscores how Star Wars is one big tapestry. The cartoons, movies, comics, all interweave. That bearded trooper was a random background character in 1983, but come 2020s, he's retroactively given a full backstory and identity. Captain Rex of the 501st. It's a gentle retcon that harms nothing and brings delight. It's worth noting the actual name Nick Sant was a pun, short for Saint Nick because he looked like Santa Claus. Now fans wink that Nick Sant was just an alias or misunderstanding, and it was Rex Incognito. It's become such accepted phenon that official sources, like StarWars.com articles or trivia galleries, have openly acknowledged Rex fought on Endor. So as we come to the end of our long, meandering storytelling, we have Captain Rex watching fireworks with the heroes on Endor. All these myths and more swirl together, a testament to the richness of the galaxy George Lucas created and the love fans have poured into it over years. Sleep well, and may the Force be with you. Always.